Hello and welcome. Another edition of our Proline live Q&A. And today, rather than listening to me babble, I thought we would speak with one of the best coaches in college baseball, associate head coach, recruiting coordinator at Wake Forest, Bill Cilento. And Bill, I really want to say thank you for taking the time, making the time to talk with me today. I'm excited to chat with you a little bit about college baseball and some Proline.
Well, I appreciate it, and it's good being here. I need you to talk to my wife. You're dropping best on me. My wife needs to hear that.
Well, I mean, you're one of the hardest workers. I mean, that's just been the case. I've, chatted with you for many years, and I know it's a 12-month-a-year type of process, particularly at Wake Forest with you and Coach Tom Walter. And I'd like to start there. Wake Forest, I guess they made the terminology of pitching lab famous. You have a lot of amenities to go along with your outstanding facilities. Talk a little bit about how you utilize those amenities and technology with regard to development at Wake Forest.
Yeah, I mean, those are all resources that we have. We're tremendously fortunate. We've been over the years, we've accumulated a lot of tools and gadgets to help our guys get better. But the truth to it is it's about building out processes and systems associated with them. And basically we're able to track and do our guys get better or not? And we can evaluate that whatever time frame we'd like to make sure they continue to get better. We've been very fortunate that we've had some really good players who've continued to get better. And you look at the last 5 years or so, you got 9 first-round picks. The last 3 years, you got 5 of them. And, those guys have all bought into just, kind of day-to-day, getting after it on the grind, but utilizing those tools, so they continue to get better.
One of the things that, makes Wake Forest such a successful program, you are really turning over every rock. You're really out listening to evaluators that you and obviously Tom trust. Talk a little bit about the role of the high school athlete, and why it is of such tremendous value, or what you feel is the foundation for the Wake Forest program.
Yeah, so I mean, plain and simple, I believe that there's a talent threshold you need to be at, and once you're above that talent threshold, it becomes about everything else. It becomes about what kind of human being you are, how you're going to deal with failure, what type of learner, or how you're going to take the information and get better. So, look, we look for guys above the talent threshold, and then I spend all of my time, effort, and energy just trying to figure out who they are. How do we do that? Like literally, I'll just every day just pepper them with what I believe and who I think we are. And if it aligns with it, they're gonna fall in love with it. If it doesn't, they're gonna think I'm a crazy human being and our staff's crazy, and that's okay too. We have our answer. But I think that's what makes them. Why was, a guy like Nick Kurtz, for example, who was on a team with a high school first rounder and multiple draft picks, undrafted and go fourth overall and is the AL Rookie of the Year, or Rhett Lauder, who was a relatively unknown, had one other offer other than us in UNC Wilmington. And why does he become the 7th overall pick? It has everything to do with that. It has everything to do with, how you deal with failure. It has everything to do with how committed you are to getting after it every single day and your processes and buying into systems. And, that's what we try and evaluate. Hey, where do you fit in that? How committed to it are you?
One of the things that makes you really successful, as a talent evaluator, is you look for those athletes, as you just alluded to, that have that work ethic. And, one of the things, that was brought to my attention when I was working with Tyler, my youngest son, at his facility was, hey, man, you're using these balls at a pretty high level of velocity. What type of ball was it? And obviously it was a Proline ball. And I know that you guys have been kind of following a similar path with regard to not only from an offensive perspective, maybe your catchers are using it, but what happened to catch your eye with regard to the Proline ball that you as a staff wanted to bring that in and allow the athletes at Wake Forest to utilize those?
Yeah, well, the challenge we're in today's world is guys are throwing harder and harder, just like Tyler, had a big time arm. And as guys throw harder and harder, they're actually throwing more and more pitches. They're expanding the repertoire at this point. So we like to train in game environments. So we're trying to teach our guys to move in certain ways and to function in certain ways. And then we need to battle test it. And one way we can battle test it is with machines and doing things at high velocity. And one of the obstacles we always faced was when you do things at high velocity and you use real baseballs, one, you don't get baseballs to act in the way you want them to act. You catch a seam or whatever it is. So that was the first piece to it. And the second piece was we were just blowing guys up, like, training them on velocity, for example, and blowing up hands. So I'm always seeking ways to kind of, solve those two problems. Someone brought a Proline ball to me one time and said, "Hey, try this ball out." Now they're a big part of everything we do. We use them every day. You can hook them, put them on a mini hack and run velocity. You can put them on a mini hack and run breaking balls. We use them inside of our iPitch machines. What I really love to do now is, we're in this world where everybody throws 4-seamers up, 2-seamers down, and cutters away, right? So you can use one of the Proline balls, and I can use another foam ball of another weight, and we can have the same pitch off the same machine act and separate by 10, 12 inches. So to be adjustable and learn how to cover those, it's a great tool. From a catching perspective, we use them all the time. You want to beat guys up relentlessly by throwing baseballs at them, blocking, your guys would be tougher than mine. I need to make sure they're on the field. So, we use them quite a bit in blocking. We use them quite a bit in receiving. It's a little bit lighter ball, so you can move it a little faster. We're trying to train the speed of the move. It's kind of endless how you can use Proline balls.
One of the things I always get asked, and because we use the same terminology, and sometimes baseball lingo kind of flies over some parents' heads, and I really want to make sure when we're talking about blowing up hands, and so we'll start offensively, you don't understand what it's like to take a mid-90s fastball and maybe not get it on the barrel. Maybe you get it in on the hands a little bit. You're going to feel that in your wrist. You're going to feel that in your thumb, your hamate bone. That's really what Coach is talking about or referring to as far as blowing up hands. There's no joy in Mudville when a baseball is traveling at 95 and you kind of get it in on your hands. It's going to leave a sting mark in your hands for an extended period of time. And then conversely, when you're trying to get your thumb under, a little bit of spin or a little bit of velo at 95, especially if it's a sinker or slider down, you're going to blow your hands up if you don't get your thumb underneath there. So it's a protective mechanism. But I would love for you to talk a little bit about, you can use the Proline ball inside, outside, with machines, without machines. Is that something that you've done at Wake as far as kind of looking for different ways how to utilize the Proline ball?
Yeah, for sure. The consistency of it is huge. And I think that allows you to use it in kind of any environment. Especially like you consider, like you get some moisture sometimes in a baseball, it's going to act differently, whereas the Proline ball is a little bit more consistent. The other thing I would say about not only just blowing up hands is, like, when you're trying to handle 95 up or 98 up and you're trying to handle something that acts down in a cutter, you need to be aggressive on your move to handle it. And what happens with a baseball more so than a Proline ball is when you're aggressive and you do mishit it and you blow up your hands, you lose that aggressiveness. You become a little bit passive. What I've found with the Proline ball is it allows for our hitters to be super aggressive with their moves. And I'd rather them make aggressive mistakes and passive mistakes any day of the week.
One of the kind of the ancillary topics that I would like to get your opinion on, and I don't think we ask coaches this enough, is a lot of times when younger hitters, they feel like they're taking their reps, and I call it in increments of 30 or 60 minutes, depending upon an instructor or lesson in a cage. But, when you're in an environment where you're able to work against velocity, you talk about the importance, rather than a tee, a front toss, a side toss, a soft toss, you're able to train eyes, hands, lower half as far as from a rotational explosive capacity when you're working against velocity. And unless you have, somebody that you have access to throw BP at that with a catcher, it makes it pretty important to get a machine and then have a reliable ball. Talk a little bit about the importance as a hitter to train against velocity and why that helps you become a college caliber hitter.
Yeah. So here's the way I look at it. There's really like kind of three workloads. You got low workload. That's your tee, your front toss, any of that stuff. You get that medium threshold. That's more of your BP type stuff. Not a lot of decision making in that. And then you have your game training a game like. The easiest way I can equate it to is bat speed is king nowadays. And you look at it, everybody is. You look at professional baseball. Why is Nick Kurtz? Nick Kurtz has got 78 mile an hour bat speed. So you combine bat speed with direction, and you got a chance to be pretty special. It allows you to make later decisions. It allows the ball to travel further. You can't train bat speed, in my opinion, unless you're training it at high speeds. So all of our bat speed is done at training is done at off machines at high levels of velocity using different weights and bats. It's effort that matters. You think about pitching, right? And pitching has made this huge advancement. Everybody's throwing harder and harder and harder. Well, why? They started tracking velocity every single day, and they throw everything they do is throw to a radar gun. But with hitters, we know bat speed's such an important thing, but oftentimes we train at such low speeds. There's a place for that. If you're training a new move, that's a good environment to be in. But we need to battle test it in the end, and we need to do it at high speeds. That requires a machine. That requires doing high velocity work, not only on fastballs but on breaking balls. Everybody's throwing breaking balls harder and harder. The biggest indicator of swing and miss on a breaking ball, it's velocity, just like the biggest indicator on fastball. So we try and train at those high speeds. The Proline ball allows for that. And we've had some success doing it. So I highly recommend it.
You had touched on a topic, another one that's kind of under discussed. We hear so much about plyo balls, weighted balls, arm care, et cetera. We don't hear a lot about weighted bats or heavier bats or different weight bats. Can you explain why? Obviously you have to be old enough and you have to have ability to move the barrel, but can you talk a little bit about why that's just as important as a weighted ball and what the importance of it is as you become older and more advanced as a baseball player?
Yeah. So, I think there's a couple advantages to it. One is just if you want to have an understanding of where the barrel is, right? We're in this world where it's become a zero-sum game. You got swing and miss. You got strikeout, walk, homer, right? You watch professional baseball, and it's tough to watch at times, right? You got strikeout, or home run. It's low scoring games. So I think the goal in today's game is being able to make contact and be able to get your good swing off of less than two strikes, your A swing off of less than two strikes, and be able to have contact in that zone contact rates, or I think something that's very important to us. So as you change bats, whether it's lengths, weights, we use short bats too. We use heavy bats. We use long bats. We use real skinny bats, broomstick type bats.
Right.
All of those things add to your awareness of where the barrel is. They add to your hand-eye coordination. When you train heavier bats, it's just like going in the weight room. You have to move them. You have to learn how to use your body appropriately to move them faster.
Bingo.
Those things are very important to us. I think they should be important to everybody. I think the goal in today's game is if we can get our hitters to be, swing at high rates, but still be adjustable. That's the goal in today's game. We need to get away from the zero-sum game and get more into, a game where there's more contact, but we still need the damage. We don't want to give up the damage to get the contact unless we get two strikes and we have to.
One of the things that makes you, such a valuable coaching resources. You seem to be everywhere. If there's someone that has the skill or the ability to potentially play at a Wake Forest, you seem to know about it early. What are some in today's world, some of the changes? Are you becoming more camp orientated? Are you limiting the showcase or the tournament environment now and kind of relying on some of the bigger name events, maybe Lake Point or PBR Futures, or are you just still trying to get as many places to see as many kids as you can?
Well, when you think about today's world that we're in, Walter, right, first and foremost, you have this world where your season ends. Your season ends and the recruiting window is hot. Hopefully it ends in Omaha, right? And,
Right,
and you go
right,
through that brick wall. The first step is you have to retain your players, right? We're in this world where anybody can transfer. So you got to do a good job throughout the year. They got to believe in who you are, but you still have to retain them at the end, right? First step is retain your players. The next step is you're in the transfer portal a little bit. The month of June tends to have some time in the transfer portal. I don't think any college program is completely devoid of the transfer portal. We try and do it mainly through the high school end. I think if you believe in culture and environment, it's really hard to do it with one-year players, and that's something that's a big believer for us, or we're a big believer in. So you have that transfer portal window. That's the month of June,
right. Yep.
where you're seeing transfer portal players. You tend to spend a little bit more time. Look, I didn't think after leaving the Cape as a player, I didn't think I'd ever go back to the Cape, right? And
Nice.
I think I've spent more time in the Cape over the course of the last 3 summers than I ever thought I would.
Now
And
hit,
then
hit
that
that,
ends.
because I don't think, now when you say that, I know what you're talking about, but parents, when I say that to parents, that the majority of college recruiting between May, let's just call it Memorial Day weekend, and July 4th is done in the summer college leagues. And obviously, if we're in the ACC, SEC, the Cape is where the big boys are going to be
Yep.
playing. So talk a little bit about that dynamic, because it's kind of new with regard to parents understanding that month of June, you're going to be out, whether it be New England Collegiate, Cape, Northwoods, et cetera. But you're checking in on some potential plug and play type players from the portal.
Yeah, and again, you're trying to show your players that are important to you too, right? So
Right.
it could be twofold, right? So we'll send 11 or 12 guys to the Cape this summer, get a chance to spend some time with those guys, let them know how important they are to our future. They're your best recruiters. Your players, your product on your field is your best recruiter. So spend some time with them, but also you're trying to find a couple of those plug and plays. Junior college players for us are a challenge academically at Wake Forest. Whereas a 4-year college transfer, it tends to be a little bit easier. It doesn't mean junior college is impossible. It doesn't mean 4-year college players are a lock. It's an academic school. So the academic end is important to us. That player can oftentimes be our version of a junior player, a 4-year college player, or transfer portal kid. And the month of June is when you see them. They go into the portal. That portal window opens right after, in early June. It's a 1-month long period. So they enter the portal at that time. So you have a pretty good idea. I mean, the communication, I think I talk to just about every Cape coach at least once a week, but most of the time it's daily. You're talking to about every Cape coach. They have a good feel for who's on the market, who's out there. You have a good feel for what your needs are, and you're trying to match those up. The challenge becomes getting those kids to visit because they're playing in the summer,
Right.
that's our summer. I feel like I'm on a plane to Providence, and Providence back here for a visit, back to Providence, and so forth. And Providence is a little bit easier for us to get into the Cape than Boston.
Well, last question, but I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask somebody such as yourself this question. It used to be a long time ago where, the 9th and 10th graders getting a lot of love and a lot of attention, a lot of, kind of people checking in on their social media. Now those days are kind of, gone, and you have to wait till the rising junior fall. But what kind of advice would you give to those younger athletes that are kind of on the outside, trying to look in and wanting to be a part of that? How would you tell them to best prepare? I always try to tell them to stay focused on the windshield. Don't pay attention to the side mirrors or the rear view mirror. Just focus on yourself, get your body ready. But how would you get those younger players to best prepare for when the bell does ring, whether it's their August 1st of their junior year or really their senior year in high school?
I'm really glad you asked that question. I think that's the biggest piece of low-hanging fruit in today's world. We used to spend tons and tons and tons of money on exposure.
Right.
Exposure for a 7th, 8th, 9th grader, you don't need it. I can't recruit you. Nobody can recruit you, right? 10th grade, you can't recruit you. So my suggestion is spend every dollar you'd spend on that on yourself. Invest in yourself, right? Spend that money. Get into the weight room. Spend it on nutrition. Because here's your challenge. Your challenge is greater than ever. There's a 34-man roster. We have a 34-man roster. You need to walk onto campus ready to play. There's no more red shirt. There's no more, he's going to be ready as a sophomore or junior. You need to walk onto campus ready to play. How can you put yourself in position to do that? Play against older players.
Bingo.
You don't need to go somewhere else. Challenge yourself.
Right.
Everybody this time of year, for example, college kids are all at home. They're building up for the spring. Those guys are going to get on the mound here shortly. Get at bats against those guys, right? If you're a catcher, catch those guys, right? We do the same thing with our guys here. We, just left our field. We have 12 or 14 of our guys from Rhett Lauder on down through on the field, right? What do I want our guys to do? Guys in the big leagues, get at bats against a big leaguer, right? How do you get better? You need the feedback of failure. Seek it, find different ways. The other thing I'll tell you is find people and surround yourself with people who are going to tell you the truth. It's hard in today's world, right? We're in this world where everything's on social media, right? Everybody is seeking your business, so they tell you what you want to hear a lot, right? Find the truth tellers out there. It's the best thing you can do. A lot of times those guys are free, right? The high school coach, a lot of times a truth teller. Find that guy.
Billy, coming in hot. That is, you're talking my language. And then I have to ask this final question. Do you think that we will see at some point, because I believe we will, I believe at some point there will be a summer college league that will consist of rising juniors, seniors in high school, freshmen and sophomores in college. Maybe just freshmen in college. And I know American Legion has that now. I know, but I'm saying, I think now with college coaches saying, we want to see you competing against college caliber talent, I think that there's going to come a day where maybe it's a mini Cape Cod League. Maybe it's a lower level of the Cape Cod League or the lower level of the Futures League. Futures League has a few high school students. Do you think that is the type of program that ultimately will benefit student athletes to be prepared to the best of their ability to be ready when their feet hit the ground as a college freshman?
Without a doubt. I hope it happens. I wish I could look into a crystal ball. I wish I could do something to make it happen. You do have it, like you said, a little bit in the Perfect Game League and in the Futures League up your way. Both of them do that a little bit. But I think that's the future. That's what it should hold. Challenge high school players being able to challenge themselves against younger guys. That's what the design of American Legion was supposed to be.
Right.
We've gotten away from it. And I think there's a void there that needs to be filled by somebody. If I can help make that happen, I promise I will.
Well, I definitely, I've been trying to preach that from Rob Bruno to Jack Crescent. Somebody's got to start, listening to this stuff, because I just can't see the benefit of a 17-year-old playing 16U and saying that I'm going to be ready to play college baseball at any level, let alone Wake Forest. But Bill,
I think that's not to cut you up, but I think that's the when you talk about today's world, I think that's what everybody avoids right now. It's a bulldozer world. Everybody tries to avoid the failure and move it out your way. I think the best players I've coached along the way, the best players in sports that you see, they want the failure. They thrive in that world.
I mean, to me, that's the garden of success. I mean, I used to always tell my boys, you'll never know how good you're capable of being until you run with the sharks and the whales and you get beat down a little bit, because you only can do two things: get back up and swim with those guys, or go find a pond and, you're going to settle there. You're never going to be any better. You'll be the best of the worst and the worst of the best. So I think it's something that really needs to be discussed at length with regard to the future of the game. But Bill, I want to say thank you so much. I have tremendous respect for the Wake Forest program, particularly you and Coach Walter. And I wish you the best holiday season. If you're going to be in Columbus, I'll be there. I'm looking forward to catching up and maybe talking a little bit more about Wake Forest baseball.
I'll be there. I'd love to. Thank you,
Walter.
All right.
And folks, I want to remind you, all of the new Proline balls are back in stock, both baseball and softball. As we talked to Coach Cilento today, I really want you to understand that this is not just an offensive from a hitting perspective. You can do catching drills, you can do picks at first base, you can do ground balls, you can do tag plays at bases. There's a lot of uses for the Proline ball. I know a lot of hitters now, Bobby Witt Jr. I know a lot of the guys in the off season that are looking to train up high-end fastball or sliders. They do utilize the Proline ball. So click the link below. Make sure you use that discount code. And Coach, thank you so much for taking the time.
I didn't even get a discount code. I need a discount code. I need to talk to those guys.
All right, I'll make sure I get you a discount code. But make sure you tell Tom I said Merry Christmas, and look forward to seeing you in Columbus.
Will do. Look forward to it.
All right, Caps.